Recently, I was on a shoot and the client came up to my camera gear, looked at it and said, "Oh, you shoot with Sony. Why is that?" And without really giving much thought of an answer, I half jokingly said, "It's what the cool kids shoot with these days." But then afterwards, I was reflecting on why do I shoot with Sony, and there are actually a lot of reasons why I do. So I thought, why not make a video about it? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 10 reasons why I use Sony cameras. Here's the story. Reason number one is the lens selection. Sony has a lot of native E-mount lenses that are amazing to use with their Sony cameras. And there are a variety of Sony lenses in different price points that you can purchase for your Sony E-mount cameras. Also, if you've already invested into other camera systems like Canon, there are adapters that you can use to adapt your Canon lenses or your EF lenses onto the Sony cameras. I wouldn't recommend doing this because although you can get satisfying results, having an extra piece of equipment that could fail on a shoot is not necessarily something that you should want to risk when being paid to produce high quality content. I've used a Metabones EF to E-mount adapter in the past, and 99 times out of 100 it worked alright, but then there was that one time out of 100 where it wasn't changing the aperture of the lens, or the image might have flickered because of the adapter, and it's little things like that which do annoy me, and just being able to eliminate that and having native E-mount lenses on your Sony cameras is something that I would recommend as opposed to going the adapter path. With that said, if you're going to look into investing into native E-mount lenses and the Sony price tag is a little bit too much for you, there are third-party options like Tamron and Sigma, which still do a great job. There are some features with those lenses that you will not get with the Sony lenses, and I'll mention more about that later in the video. However, they are a reasonable option if you find yourself on a budget. But if budget isn't a problem, I would 100% recommend getting the Sony G Master lenses because they are the best lenses that you can get for your Sony E-mount cameras. Reason number two is lens breathing compensation. And I've talked about this plenty in the past in other videos. And basically what lens breathing is when you focus on something close to the camera lens and then focus on something further away. And then the image looks like it breathes a little. If you look at the edges, it moves. And this isn't really a look that I like to have in my videos, so having the lens breathing compensation feature in select Sony cameras, which I do personally own, which are the Sony FX6 and the Sony A7 IV, which I'm shooting with right now, this feature allows you to eliminate the lens breathing look in your footage. And this is great for me because I really don't like the lens breathing look. It would be great to see Sony roll out this feature in a firmware update like they have with the FX6 to other Sony cameras like the A7S III, the FX3, the A1, the FX9. It'd be great to see this feature in those cameras because it is really helpful and it is another reason that you would want to invest into high quality lenses like the Sony G Master lenses, which are notorious for having lens breathing issues. Reason number three is SLOG 3, and I love shooting with SLOG 3 because it's a great log profile that I've figured out a really good workflow for. I color correct all my footage with Cinematch, and I can use that paid plugin in both Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro, which are the two NLEs that I use to create my video projects. Unfortunately, I have to pay for 2 licenses because one license doesn't go across both programs, and it is also available in DaVinci Resolve if you edit with that program as well. I find I can get a really good look out of this plugin, and also if you don't want to go the paid plugin path, there are also the Phantom Luts which you can purchase as well, and that could be a really quick and easy solution for you if you just want to use a simple LUT to get great looking footage. Also, all my cameras do shoot SLOG 3. I shoot with the FX6, the A7S III, and the A7 IV. And they all allow me to be able to shoot 4K, 422, 10-bit SLOG 3. And having that 10-bit is very important. If you shoot with a Sony A7 III, fortunately in 4K that doesn't have 10-bit, and 10-bit is really important to get the best results when shooting SLOG 3. And SLOG 3 is the profile I do like to shoot in. I do know other people do like to shoot with S-Cinetone or use other baked in picture profiles in their Sony cameras, but for me personally, I really do like the SLOG 3 look. And then when I'm personally editing the footage in post, it's a really simple workflow using Cinematch. Reason number 5 is that Sony produces so many different cameras that they have really created the right tool for the right job. Using my Sony FX6, it is a great camera for doing interviews, plugging different accessories into it like monitors and audio equipment. and just being able to produce a variety of content with this one camera. But when I have that camera all kitted out and ready to record, say, an interview, if I then want to quickly get some gimbal B-roll, I then have to strip it down and then put it onto a gimbal and then record that way. And that will slow down my production, and it's not necessarily the kind of workflow I want to have. So having another camera which is smaller and ready to go onto a gimbal like an A7S III is really helpful. And the great thing about all these different cameras that I'm listing in this video is that they do look quite similar. They don't line up 100%, but with a little work in post and using the right lenses, you can get a very similar look across all these different cameras which have different price ranges and also different form factors. And I find sometimes having a big kitted out FX6 can be a little bit intimidating to some people, and having a smaller stripped down A7S III is a lot more inviting, and I can get better results using a camera like that. So form factor can play a big part in my video production, and having all these different tools for different jobs that Sony creates is really helpful, and another reason that I love to shoot with Sony. Reason number 6 is IBIS, or in-body image stabilization. And I find that Sony has great IBIS and it works really well for my projects. It helps eliminate micro jitters and allows me to go handheld a bit more, and I can use a variety of lenses that don't have OSS or optical steady shot. So having that in-body image stabilization in cameras like my A7S III and my Sony A7 IV is really helpful. Unfortunately, it's not in my Sony FX6. So as I said before, different tools, different jobs. Speaking of different tools and different jobs, reason number 7 is the built-in electronic variable ND. And this is incredibly helpful when shooting outside. This is only found in my Sony FX6 camera, which I currently own. And unfortunately, it's not in the A7S III or the A7 IV. If it was, that would be amazing. But I do understand that it is a feature that can't really be included in cameras that has IBIS, which I've just previously mentioned. So once again, different tools, different jobs. I also find it really helpful with the electronic variable ND having the different settings that you can set it to. It does have auto ND as well, so if you're outside and the sun is going in and out behind clouds, it can smoothly adjust the image, and you shouldn't notice it too much when watching the footage back. There are 3 different modes that you can set it to, and I normally set it to either standard or backlight, just depending on the weather conditions that I'm in. Reason number 8 is the MI Hotshoe, and I love this feature in my Sony cameras. I have it in all my 3 cameras, and I'm able to attach my dual channel wireless receiver to my cameras to be able to get audio into the camera directly. I don't need any extra cables to plug into the camera, and it's a nice clean solution to be able to get high quality audio directly into my camera. Reason number 9 is I can choose between using CF Express Type A cards and SD cards in my Sony cameras. Currently, CF Express Type A cards are quite expensive, so having the option to be able to use SD cards, which might be a little bit slower but a lot more affordable, is really helpful. And reason number 10 is clear image zoom. And I love using clear image zoom on my Sony FX6, not so much the A7S III or A7 IV, because on the FX6 you can still use the face eye autofocus while using clear image zoom, which is a feature that's been unlocked in the firmware 2.0 update on the FX6. So if you haven't updated your FX6 to the firmware 2.0, there actually is a 3.0 firmware update as well. So if you haven't got the latest firmware update, I strongly recommend that you update to that, because it does make the FX6 a lot more powerful as a video production tool. The lens breathing compensation feature is also found in that 2.0 update as well. And clear image zoom is great to use in 4K if you want to just punch in a little bit, up to 1.5 times. And if you're shooting in 1080p, you can zoom in up to 2 times as well. So there are 10 reasons that I love to shoot with Sony. There are actually plenty more, and I might do an extra video in the future about that. But let me know what you think. Are you a Sony shooter? And if so, what are some of the features that you love in their cameras? I'd love to hear them in the comments. And that's the video. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel for more videos on video creation in the future.